We're kicking off with AEW as MJF walked into his main event legitimately hurt, but judging by the video of Long Island residents aired before the match, he certainly had the fans on his side. MJF arrived in the flashiest robe he's ever worn, and then shocked fans by bringing out Adam Cole. But when the match begun, Samoa Joe wasted no time in targeting Max's injured shoulder. The majority of the match saw Joe in control, broken up by short bursts of comebacks, though MJF's signature piledriver was reversed into Joe's trademark armbar. Joe had an answer to everything MJF tried, and when MJF asked for his ring, Cole took too long trying to find it, giving Joe time to lock in a rear naked choke. That proved to be the surprising end of the match, as with MJF out cold, Joe was crowned the new AEW World Champion, giving a strange ending to an otherwise fun match. The bull chant from fans didn't help matters until the Devil's Masked Men showed up, and they attacked Max and held Cole so he could watch. Cole and MJF both begged to be hit instead of the other, but then the lights dropped, and when they came on, Cole was sat in a chair with the Devil's goons, no longer masked, on his side. A heartbroken MJF asked Cole how he could do this to him before Wardlow, Roderick Strong, and the Kingdom demolished him, and Cole pulled out the Devil's mask, revealing himself to be the mastermind. On social media, fans have been making it clear they're angry with the unmasking, with many saying it was too obvious, and while the match was mostly fantastic, what came after is up for debate. But what did you think of this match, the title change, and the reveal? Sound off in the comments. In a rematch for the TNT Championship, Adam Copeland faced Christian Cage, and Copeland attacked his former friend during his entrance, sending the Waynes running for cover. With no disqualifications, the match was more of a fight, with the typical hip tosses and headlocks traded in for brutal violence and weapons, and some very interesting spots. Cage even stomped Copeland's head into the steel steps and busted him open at one point, and Nick and Shayna Wayne were happy to gather weapons for Christian. Tables, ladders, chairs, a kendo stick, and a random metal rod were used, but the Long Island crowd wanted fire, and they got it. Unfortunately, the spot with the fire, which saw Copeland powerbomb Wayne, was botched, as after the flames went out, Copeland had to relight it before he hit the move. The move also saw Wayne miss the majority of the table, and while it still hurt, the fact that the table didn't even break made this a very awkward moment. The flaming table was reminiscent of Copeland's WrestleMania 22 match with Mick Foley, so it was fitting that the Rated R superstar wore the same attire for this match. Copeland was on top form despite this botch, from his hilarious yelling at Nigel McGuinness on commentary to hitting a crossbody from a raised section in the crowd, which Copeland was clearly pleased with. In the end, Copeland hit Cage with his own finisher to win the TNT title, but his reign would be short-lived as Killswitch showed up to attack the new champion. Killswitch, who'd won a number 1 Contenders Battle Royal on the kickoff show, was convinced to surrender his opportunity to Cage, who cashed in and hit a spear to reclaim the TNT title. The match itself was great, but the post-match stuff is debatable, and what did you think of this match? Since AEW launched, Chris Jericho has been one of the most featured stars the company has used, but recently the first ever AEW World Champion has been embroiled in a serious scandal. Jericho is alleged to have acted inappropriately with Kylie Ray, as was first hinted at by Nick Hausman, who suggested that there were some skeletons in Jericho's closet. Hausman went even further, as he compared Jericho to the disgraced Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein, as he said that like Jericho, Weinstein did a lot of popular work. Hausman was quick to make clear that he's not saying Jericho will end up in jail like Weinstein, but that the narrative can quickly turn if a wrestler is hiding things. Hausman argued that Jericho has a lot of clout in AEW, but it's important to use such power responsibly, and added that a lot of people have been hurt by Chris and his actions. He went on to say that there are a lot of questionable stories about Jericho that will surface eventually, and it's uncomfortable to see him lauded like he is. The ISO wrestling account then shared an old tweet and made sure to blur out who sent it, which started by questioning why Ray would leave AEW when the company was super popular in 2019. The person then claimed that Kylie was asked to go to Jericho's hotel room with the understanding that others would be there, but when she arrived, he was the only person there. Jericho then allegedly made a pass at Kylie Ray, but no other details were given, and it was said that she freaked out at the time. An original accuser of David Starr also tweeted out to say, "Sometimes I stop to wonder how many young women out there are wondering if it's safe to post about Chris Jericho yet." That post got a reaction from Ray herself, who shared a single heart emoji, which some have taken as her agreeing with what is being said about Jericho in these posts. In a video clip that's resurfaced online, Jericho can be seen downplaying the allegations of misconduct that Vince McMahon faced last year that'd ultimately lead to his brief retirement. In the clip, Jericho says that these allegations against Vince were not really a surprise and defended the chairman by saying it's really not illegal. While Jericho was talking about a matter completely separate of the allegations he is facing, this resurfaced video hardly paints the former world champion in a positive light. This previously overlooked footage is now receiving significant attention and has prompted fans to reevaluate their perceptions of Jericho's character. In the midst of these allegations, the great Brian Last took to Twitter to share images from the AEW Talent Handbook, which outlines the company's guidelines for handling harassment. Harassment is defined as unwelcome conduct that unreasonably interferes with an individual's services for AEW or creates an intimidating, hostile, or offensive work environment. The document then shares the various ways harassment can take place, from verbal to physical to visual, before looking specifically at sexual harassment. On the top of the list of sexual harassment is uninvited requests for sexual favors or sexual advances, whether accompanied by promises or threats to the receiving party. It is also made clear that violation of this policy may result in disciplinary action up to and including termination of engagement. If the allegations against Jericho are proven to be true, then he could soon be out of AEW. But despite this situation, Tony Khan still allowed him the opportunity to compete at World's End. Jericho was part of an 8-man tag match which saw himself, Sammy Guevara, Darby Allin, and Sting face Ricky Starks, Big Bill, Konosuke Takeshita, and Powerhouse Hobbs, but one moment in the match caught everyone's attention. Jericho and Starks were in the ring and seemingly ready to lock up, but instead, Starks flipped off Jericho and tagged Hobbs in, with some stating this was Ricky's reaction to the allegation. It wasn't just Starks who wasn't thrilled with Jericho, as on social media the hashtag #FireChrisJericho trended, as the fans made their views clear online. Those at AEW World's End in Long Island were also against Jericho, as the bout saw NDA and Kylie Ray chants, clearly aimed at the former world champion. There were also boos for Jericho and, for good measure, a smattering of CM Punk chants, someone who Jericho had previously argued was behind a lot of drama in AEW. Even Jericho's own tag partners seemed to be against Jericho, as on the entrance stage, Darby Allin could be heard yelling, "You piece of shit," in Jericho's direction. Back on social media, Morgan Holly Moore shared a DM from Jericho who said, "You're a journalist now," as well as an emoji with stars in its eyes. Moore stated that while some claim that this DM was nothing from Jericho, she sees it as clearly a way in from a married man. It's been 4 years since Kylie Ray last competed for AEW, and with these allegations, many are reevaluating how her exit from the company was handled. In a clip from 2019, Tony Khan was asked about Ray and made it clear she was no longer with AEW after requesting her release, which was swiftly granted. Rather than speak about her skills and accomplishments as Khan often does, the AEW president quickly moved on from the discussion, which many are now seeing in a new light. In the video, Khan appears somewhat dodgy, fidgeting and stuttering as he reveals that Ray had requested a release, which many are seeing as a sign that something did happen. This is a developing story and could have serious implications on AEW and Chris Jericho, and we'll continue to follow this matter for further updates. Over the past couple of years, WWE has seen some major changes to how it operated, and now one of the most influential people in the promotion's history is set to leave. PW Insider reports that Kevin Dunn, the executive producer and chief global television distribution, is leaving and informed WWE of his decision to exit around Christmas week. One factor contributing to Dunn's decision appears to be internal changes following Endeavor's acquisition, and he was seemingly not willing to adhere to directives imposed on him. Dunn had previously been able to oversee production more independently, and the issue seems to revolve around differing visions for how TV production should be managed. Despite rumors of his departure in recent years, WWE never asked Dunn to leave, and in fact, the board of directors requested that he stay on when Vince McMahon initially retired in July 2022. Dunn's departure is not exactly surprising, as it had been speculated for some time that he had no intention of working for anyone other than Vince McMahon. With McMahon's influence diminishing following the acquisition by Endeavor and TKO Group Holdings, Dunn's exit now has significant implications for the company going forward. Kevin Dunn was with WWE for decades, but his time with the company is coming to an end. in another massive shakeup to how the sports entertainment juggernaut does business. At AEW World's End, Andrade El Idolo lost to Miro after CJ Perry decided to align with her husband in what many feel could be Andrade's last match in an AEW ring. Perry, who at times seemed conflicted, shockingly prevented her client Andrade from winning the match by breaking up a submission hold, allowing the Redeemer to get the submission win with the game over. WrestlePurists reports that AEW sources have indicated that Andrade is leaving AEW and could be returning to WWE as the mystery superstar being teased for the Day 1 episode of Raw. A WWE source WrestlePurists spoke to said that they are aware of the talk surrounding Andrade and are expecting him to join the company imminently, but didn't clarify if that meant on tomorrow's Raw. All signs are pointing to Andrade leaving, and in an update from Fightful Select, it's made clear that his exit from the promotion is far from a pleasant departure. They report, numerous sources indicated that Andrade made it clear this past Wednesday at AEW Dynamite he no longer wanted to be with the company and was planning on leaving. We're told that the situation surrounding Andrade's exit was less than pleasant, with some even saying a major disagreement had unfolded. The report adds that while WWE sources were told his AEW deal wouldn't be up until at least the spring, the consensus among many is that a WWE return is going to be happening very soon. Reacting to rumors of Andrade being the returning superstar on the Day 1 Raw, one source was befuddled at the idea, but did not explicitly refute the notion. The returning superstar is said to be a former WWE champion, which in theory would rule out Andrade unless WWE pulls a bait and switch as he's a former WWE NXT champion. Andrade debuted in AEW in 2021, and despite high hopes, many feel his time with the company fell flat. But what do you think of all this? Let us know in the comments. In the finals of the AEW Continental Classic, Eddie Kingston defeated Jon Moxley, becoming the first AEW Continental Champion and the new Triple Crown Champion in a massive win for the Mad King. Renee Paquette clarified during the pre-show that Kingston's ROH and NJPW Openweight titles will not be merged with the new Continental title, so they'll be able to be defended separately, meaning you can expect to see a lot of Eddie Kingston in many promotions. At AEW World's End, Swerve Strickland defeated Dustin Rhodes in a hard-fought match, but this wasn't the bout that was advertised for AEW's final pay-per-view of 2023. On Twitter, mere hours before the show, Tony Khan shared that Keith Lee, Strickland's original opponent, was out with an injury, hence why Rhodes was subbed in as his replacement. On the pre-World's End media call, Tony Khan said this show was the perfect time to have Strickland and Lee face off, but it looks like fans will have to keep waiting to see that match. As for the match fans saw, Strickland targeted the ankle of Rhodes, leading to AEW's medical team arriving, and they advised Dustin to leave the bout as he was seemingly injured. Dustin fought back and even delivered a crossroads in a tribute to his brother Cody, but in the end, it was Strickland who emerged on top in another impressive win. On the 0-hour pre-show, Chris Statlander took on Willow Nightingale, and when Nightingale attempted to powerbomb Statlander, she could not lift her in the appropriate way. This almost resulted in Statlander almost being dropped midway through, and this was a scary botch that garnered some audible gasps from the AEW crowd. As we mentioned earlier, a battle royal for a shot at the TNT title was won by Killswitch on the pre-show, and saw some notable names get involved. Killswitch and Lance Archer dominated the action and scored the most eliminations, but in the end, Killswitch eliminated Trent Beretta to get the coveted win. With the FTW Championship on the line, Hook was able to retain against Wheeler Yuta as the second-generation wrestler proves to be ready to take on all comers. In the 8-man tag team match we discussed earlier, Chris Jericho, Sting, Darby Allin, and Sammy Guevara defeated the heels, but this match played second fiddle to the controversy around Y2J. In AEW Women's World Championship action, Timeless Toni Storm continued her title run with a victory over Riho, and once again, Storm's character work proved to be second to none on the show. The TBS Championship was also on the line, with Julia Hart retaining over Abadon, and it'll be interesting to see what's next for the House of Black member after this latest win. So that was AEW's World's End, a show that faced highs, lows, and a sea of controversy. But what did you make of the show? Let us know in the comments down below.